So uh, today I would mainly confine myself to the philosophical literature of Advaita Vedanta, and I hope it may take another lecture also. Though previously I had thought to deliver uh, a lecture on philosophical literature of Kashmir Savagism, but as you have, I think, found out the syllabus, new syllabus, and every teacher has been allotted specific topics. So I have to confine myself to the Vedas, then the six orthodox schools of Indian philosophy, and then Buddhism. So I had to skip the idea of giving you a short introduction about the philosophical literature of Savagism, though previously I thought about that I should give you a brief account of the literature of Vaishnavism, Savagism, Buddhism, and I could have liberty to take other issues related with your research topic, but as new syllabus has been, new timetable has been furnished to you, so I have to limit myself to the syllabus which I have been given. So I would take only the Vedas, the six schools of Indian philosophy, then Buddhism. Today I shall talk about the general literature of Advaita Vedānta. Advaita Vedānta is often taken as synonymous of Vedanta, but as you found that it is not justified to say like that. Why? Because there are so many other schools of Vedanta. If Advaita teaches the philosophy of Advaita or non-dualism, there are so many Vedantic schools which claim that they are no less Vedantin than the Advaitins, and they teach the philosophy of Advaita or difference, or the philosophy of difference come non-difference. So being a student of Vedanta, you must be clear about that Vedanta is not the Advaita Vedanta. Or Advaita Vedanta is not the only school of Vedanta. There are various schools of Vedanta. In fact, I think by now you are familiar with the vast literature of the theistic Vedanta. In fact, like the theistic Vedantins, you know that in Advaita Vedanta also three foundational literature of the system. There are three foundational literature of the system. In fact, all the Vedantins, be it the Visishta Advaita or Advaita or Advaita Vedanta itself, all the Vedantins would accept that there are three foundational literature of Vedanta, and that is known as Prasthana Traya or Prasthana Trayi, and these are, the Upanishads, the Gita, and the Brahma Sutra. So in Advaita Vedanta also, these three are treated as most authoritative. In fact, the philosophy of Vedanta is based, as I told you that day, and as you know already, that Vedanta is the philosophy based on the Upanishads, the end portion of the Veda. So Vedanta is mainly the Upanishadic philosophy, and that philosophy is also in fact presented in the Bhagavad Gita as well as the Brahma Sutras. In fact, what Brahma Sutras do, they only in fact summarize the teaching of the Vedanta. Brahma Sutras actually they summarize the teaching of the Upanishads. So it is wrong to conceive that the philosophy of Brahma Sutra is different from the philosophy of Upanishads. In fact, often people say that this is the philosophy of Upanishad, but this is the philosophy of Brahma Sutra. And in fact, even people like Thibaut, he maintains that so far as the Brahma Sutra is concerned, Ramanuja is justified interpreting the Brahma Sutra in that Visishtadvaita manner. So far the Upanishads are concerned, Shankaracharya is justified in interpreting the Upanishads in his own way. In fact, these people believe that the philosophy of Upanishad is different from philosophy of Brahma Sutra. Again, some people may say that the philosophy of Gita is different from these two. But you should in fact keep in mind that a traditional scholar of Vedantic philosophy, or the traditional view is that all these three texts, in fact, they express the same truth. They express the same philosophy. So they carry the same philosophical thought. So there is unity among these three. This is the view of all the, in fact, traditional acharyas. So the three canonical texts, as I told you, the Upanishads, the Gita, and the Brahma Sutra, you already know that the first one is called the Shruti Prasthan, second one is called the Smriti Prasthan, third one is called the Tarka Prasthan or Nyaya Prasthan. All these three have been accepted in Advaita Vedanta also. These are the foundational literature of. So far as Upanishads are concerned, and by that we can also, in fact, have a light about what is the real or the actual writing of Shankaracharya. It is believed that there are 10 major Upanishads on which Shankar wrote commentaries. These 10 Upanishads are, one can sometimes people say that one more, Shvetasatara also. So there are 11 Upanishads on which we have commentary of Shankaracharya, and people believe that they were really written by Shankaracharya, the Bhagavad Gita Shankaracharya. These are the Is Upanishads, the Ken Upanishad, then the Prashna Upanishad, then Mundak and Mandukya, then Aitreya and Taitri, then the Shvetasatara, and Chandogya, Brihadaranyaka and Katha. So these 11 Upanishads, they are though there are more than 100 Upanishads. In fact, Muktika Upanishad talks about 108 Upanishad, and one can say that there are other Upanishads also. But out of these 108 Upanishads, these 11 Upanishads are considered to be the most authoritative in Advaita Vedanta or Shankar's Vedanta. Then there is the Brahma Sutra. And the Brahma Sutra, you know, this is the major text of Advaita Vedanta. Already you know that all the Brahmanical schools of Indian philosophy, they are based on the Sutra literature. For example, Advaita Vedanta is based on the Vedanta Sutra that is called the Brahma Sutra. The Sankhya is based on Sankhya Sutra. Yoga is on Yoga Sutra written by Patanjali. Mimamsa on Mimamsa Sutra of Germany. and a Nyaya on Nyaya Sutra and a Vaisesika on Vaisesika Sutra of Kanad. So this Brahma Sutra is the one of the major foundational literature of Advaita Vedānta. But one thing you should, I think you should know that this Brahma Sutra of Badarayana is just the one sort of Brahma Sutra which we have available today. People are of the opinion that there were other Brahma Sutras also. And even in Brahma Sutra of Badarayana, you will find, in fact, a reference of 8 acharyas. And by that, people, in fact, somehow infer that these acharyas were actually the previous authors of the Brahma Sutras. So, Badarayana's Brahma Sutra is not the only attempt to, in fact, summarize the teaching of Vedanta. There were other attempts also. But by the way, nowadays only one of Brahma Sutra is available, that is of Badarayana. Those who have worked on the pre-Sankar Advaita Vedanta, they are of the view that there were other acharyas also who wrote, in fact, aphoristic work on Vedanta, in fact, specifying the philosophy of the Upanishads. For example, maybe the Badri or Asmarat or Karsajini or Gemini or Audulumi, these acharyas are supposed to have written Brahma Sutras, but nowadays, unfortunately, we have only one. So, being a researcher in Indian philosophy, you must be cautious about the literature which you have available now. Those who are working on Buddhism would be surprised to know that the literature which is available of Buddhism today is only a little part of the literature of Buddhism. A major portion of literature of Buddhism is still neither available in Sanskrit or in Pali or in any language. That is still, in fact, preserved in Chinese language and other languages also. So you have to study so many languages in order to, in fact, have a reach on the actual literature of the particular system. Similarly, not before Badarayana, there were so many acharyas. We should not think that Badarayana is the first acharya or of Vedanta. In fact, there were other acharyas before Badarayana. And Badarayana himself, in fact, referred to that. As I told you, he at least referred to 8 acharyas in Brahma Sutra. And even after Brahma Sutra, in fact, what we find the first commentary on Brahma Sutra we find by Sankaracharya. But that is not the case. There were other commentaries also. For example, the commentary of Bodhayana, the commentary of Upavars. So there were other commentaries also. In fact, now again, we do not find, we have, in fact, nowadays, in fact, no commentary is available of before Sankaracharya, but there is evidence regarding that there were people who commented on Brahma Sutra before Sankaracharya. And they were like the Upavars. They are often called Vrittikar. Upavars is Vrittikar. Similarly, the Bodhayan, to whom Ramanuja respect very much. So, in fact, out of these Bodhayan and Upavars, so one can say that the Advaitins, in fact, they take Upavars as of their own school, and they, in fact, refer to Upavars as Sampradaya Vid. So they have great respect for Upavars. Similarly, to Bodhayan, the other schools, in fact, they have great respect. In fact, Ramanujan again talks about Bodhaya. So, however, what we have available, that only in the writing of Shankaracharya, we for the first time find a commentary on the Upanishads. One is the, in fact, exception. Which one? Before Shankaracharya, one person wrote on Upanishad. Can you tell me about that person? Any one of his students? Particularly of Vedānta. Oh yeah, God. The grand teacher of Shankaracharya, he wrote on Mandukya Upanishad. So, but in fact, Gaudapad is not the only person, as I told you. There were other persons also who wrote on Upanishads or even the Bhagavad Gita or a Brahma Sutra. I cannot surely tell about Bhagavad Gita, but so far as Upanishads are concerned, in fact, the Bhartri Mitra, the Bharti Prapanch, Sundar Pandey, these people also wrote somehow. Again, we have no literature available about them. So it was the Shankaracharya, in fact, who is credited to be the first person who commented on the Upanishads, on the Bhagavad Gita, and on the Brahma Sutra. Those people who are in fact interested in having a better acquaintance with the pre-Advaita Vedānta philosophy, they can in fact there is a book by Sangamlal Pandey, that is pre-Sankara Advaita Vedānta. And then there is a book by Nakamura also. He has written, in fact, a very good history of Advaita Vedānta. So, in Nakamura book, in Sangamlal Pandey, you can, in fact, find a better history about pre-Sankara Advaita Vedānta. One name is also very significant, and that is of Mandan Mishra. One name is also very significant, that is Mandan Mishra. He wrote, in fact, he is author of Brahma Siddhi, and then there is a controversy regarding whether Mandan Mishra and Padma Padacharya, or whether the Mandan Mishra and Sureshwara Acharya. Often it is said that Mandan Mishra is the Sureshwara Acharya. He is the Sureshwara Acharya. So there are people who believe in the identity of Mandan and Sureshwara, like the Bala Subramanian and others. Or one can say traditional view maintains that Mandan and in fact Sureshwara Acharya, they are the same one. However, the Hiryanna, the Kupuswami Shastri, or the other scholars, they do not believe that they are the same people. So Mandan's Brahma Siddhi is also very important, and there is a commentary on Mandan's Brahma Siddhi, and which is now available. In fact, previously it was not available. Recently, a scholar who is presently the chief editor of Journal of Indian Philosophy, Divakar. In fact, Divakar has edited the commentary on Brahma Siddhi, and that is now available. Who has written that commentary? Vachaspati, Brahma Tattva Samiksha. The Tattva Samiksha. So this man, Divakar, he edited the commentary of Vachaspati Mishra on Brahma Siddhi, and fortunately that is now available with us. So there are 4 Siddhi texts. One is the Brahma Siddhi, then another is Naiskarma Siddhi, and then the Ishta Siddhi, and the fourth one was Advaita Siddhi, where the author of Advaita Siddhi in fact talks about these 3 previous Siddhi, that is the Brahma Siddhi, Ishta Siddhi, and Naiskarma Siddhi. Naiskarma Siddhi is the text written by Sureshwaracharya. You know that there were 4 immediate pupils of Shankaracharya. In fact, they were the Padmapadacharya, then the Sureshwaracharya, then Trotakacharya and Hastamalacharya. So, these, in fact, out of these Sureshwaracharya, he is considered to be the Vartikar. You will see that there are 3, as we saw, there are 3 foundational literature of Vedanta, which is known as Prasthantrayi, Shruti Prasthan, Smriti Prasthan, and Tark Prasthan. Shruti Prasthan is the Upanishad, Smriti Prasthan is the Bhagavad Gita, and Tark Prasthan is the Brahma Sutra. Then there are 3 sub-schools or 3 Prasthana Paddhat itself, and they are known as the Bhamati Prasthan, the Vivarana Prasthan, and the third one is Vartik Prasthan. So these are the 3 Prasthan, or one can say these are the 3 sub-schools of Advaita Vedanta. One is called the Vivarana Prasthan, another is the Bhamati Prasthan, and third one is the Vartik Prasthan. Again, in fact, they have their own interpretation of Shankar's teaching. So, again and again, as I told you, that this is the beauty of Indian philosophy, that it developed through debates, through interpretation, and there is always a scope of a novel interpretation in Indian philosophy. That's why it is wrong to say that Indian philosophy is a closed system of 6 orthodox schools and 6 non-orthodox schools. It is just wrong. It has been always a flowing system. It has been always open to new ideas, new interpretation. And that's why you find, again I emphasize in my lecture, all the Brahmanical schools, they claim that they are the Vedic philosophies. But they interpret the Vedic philosophy in their own way. One in philosophy may say that Vedas accept the existence of God, and others may say, no, Vedas do not accept the existence of God. That which you see, the Mimamskas, they do not accept God. However, Naiyayikas accept God. Even regarding God, whether God is the personal, some Vedantins would argue for that. Whereas the Advaita Vedantins would say, no, God is not personal. Again, so what is the actual teaching of Vedas? There is no consensus regarding that. There are various opinions that suggest that we have, though these people say that Vedas are authoritative, but at the same time by that we can conclude that they interpret the teaching of Vedas in their own. That's why, as you are maintaining, that's why Daya Krishna says that the authority is itself a myth in Indian philosophy. You have always freedom of interpretation. And so, Again, regarding, in fact, that we talked about, regarding what is the Vedanta philosophy itself. There is difference regarding that. Where Shankar would argue that Vedanta teaches the philosophy of non-difference, the Madhva would say no, it teaches the philosophy of difference. They are in fact interpreting the philosophy of Vedanta in contradictory, just total contradictory ways you find. One is saying that the difference is the philosophy propagated by the Vedanta. Vedanta teaches, you are already aware of the theory of Panchabhed. Panchabhedas are Nitya, 5 differences are eternal, Madhva maintains. Which are 5 differences? Those who are students of Vedanta means which are 5 differences which are eternal according to Madhva Vedantins. Means, can you tell? Anyone? Okay?
Difference between Jeev and Ishwar, difference between Jeev and Shiv, difference between Ishwar and Brahma.
Ishwar and Brahma? You are okay?
Difference between Ishwar and Jeev,
Okay.
Jeev and Jeev,
Okay.
Jad and Jad,
Okay.
Jeev and Jad, and Jad and
Very good. Very good. So these are the 5 differences. Bhinna gunascha padartha according to Madhvacharya. But on the other hand, you find that Shankar is in fact emphasizing on unity. He is saying no, it is not the Dvaita, but it is the Advaita. That is the philosophy of Vedanta. So what I want to say that there has been always, in fact, freedom of, there has always been scope for interpretation and reinterpretation. And that's why Indian philosophy cannot be called a system of, a closed system of some particular schools of philosophy. So, we were talking about the literature of Advaita Vedanta. So, after, Badarayana, there is Shankaracharya. As I told you, there were people between these two. Unfortunately, we have not record about that. Only we have in fact, historical evidence of only the Gaudpadacharya, of Bhartrihari. We have not any evidence about the Bhartrimitra and Bhartriprapanch. Bhartrimitra, Bhartriprapanch, Sundar Pandey, these people were in fact before Shankar. So far as Shankaracharya is concerned, as I told you, that there are so many writings ascribed to Shankaracharya. So there is again a challenge to a person working on Advaita Vedanta to ascertain out of these which were actually written by Shankaracharya. In 10 volumes, the works of Shankaracharya have been published by Samta Books. And you will agree to me that all these cannot be ascribed to Shankaracharya. However, in fact, almost all the scholars accept that Shankaracharya wrote commentary on the Brahma Sutra, that is famous as Brahma Sutra Sankara Bhasya. Then Shankaracharya wrote commentary on 10 Upanishads. Regarding the 11th one, there is again the dispute regarding the Shvetasutra Upanishad. And then he wrote commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, and then most scholars believe that he also wrote Upadesh Sahasri. Though again there is dispute regarding that, whether he wrote only the prose part. Some people are of opinion that he wrote prose as well as the part written in the verses. But besides that, we find enormous literature. For example, he wrote on, you might be aware of the text Saundarya Lahari. Saundarya Lahari. Now, regarding there are so many scholars who believe that Saundarya Lahari was not written by Shankaracharya. Though even in your department there is Professor Jha, who has in fact worked on Saundarya Lahari, and he would in fact give so many arguments to say that no, in fact this Saundarya Lahari was actually written by Shankaracharya. Then there is Vivek Churamani, Manisha Panchak, Panchikaran, and then Atmabodh and Dakshinamurti Stotra and Charpat Panjayika Stotra. These are ascribed to Shankaracharya, but you must be careful about that, whether they were actually written by Shankaracharya or not. Now, after Shankaracharya, as I told you, this text, the Brahma Sutras, Sankara Bhasya, which is considered to be one of the most significant literature of Advaita Vedānta, that is Brahma Sutra Sankara Bhasya, where Shankaracharya gives the Advaitic interpretation of Vedānta. In fact, earlier on you saw that day, we talked about how the different theistic acharyas, they also wrote commentary on the Brahma Sutra. But the Shankar's Brahma Sutra is a unique one. And in fact, his immediate disciple, as I told you, Padmapadacharya, he wrote commentary on that. Again, the full commentary is not available to us. No, we have that commentary is known as Panchpadika. Panchpadika. There is so many, in fact, there are so many stories related to Panchpadika. I am not going to tell about that. And that the Panchpadika, which is now available, that is only on 4 sutras. And that Panchpadika has been commented by Prakasatmayati. Prakasatmayati, and this man is very important, because he wrote the commentary on Panchpadika, that is known as Panchpadika Vivaran. And after that, in fact, the school is known as Vivarani school or Vivarana Prasthan. So one Prasthan is Vivarana Prasthan, and here Vivarana Prasthan is actually, one can say that Padmapadacharya and Prakasatmayati, these are the, in fact, the founders of these schools, this school, Vivarana Prasthan. And then there were people who wrote commentary on even this Vivarana. This Padmapad Panchpadika is commentary on Brahma Sutra Sankara Bhasya. and Vivarana is a sub-commentary on commentary of Padmapadacharya. Okay, and then again we find so many people writing some commentaries on this Panchpadika Vivarana. Okay, so these people carried the philosophy of Vivarana Prasthana. And later on, in 14th century, there was a person who is very important so far as the history of Advaita Vedanta is concerned, that is Vidyarana. He summarized the doctrine of Vivarana school, and that is known as Vivarana Prameya Sangra. That is very important. In fact, in this man is also very, this Vidyaran, and in fact, this Vidyaran is also known as Madhav. So, and he is the author of Sarvodar Sangra. Madhavacharya is the author of Sarvodar Sangra. So Madhav and Vidyaran are the same people. So Vidyaran wrote the Panchadasi. In fact, Vidyaran is the author of Panchadasi also. And Panchadasi is a very significant text so far as the beginners of Vedanta. That is again very interesting. There are few texts, in fact, especially meant for the beginners of the Vedanta. These texts are there are some texts which are in fact meant for the beginners. Bal Bodhini, one can say. They were written for children to acquaint with the philosophy of Vedanta. And these texts are the Panchadasi, Tattvanusandhan. Then the one text which you already have read, which is that. That is the most elementary text of the Vedanta philosophy or Advaita Vedanta philosophy. You have already read that. The philosophy of Advaita Vedanta has been best described in that book. Though there are scholars who doubt regarding that, and that is Vedanta Sara by Sadhananda. So this Vedanta Sara, Vedanta Paribhasa, these texts were written, these texts were written for the beginners. Vedanta Sara, Vedanta Paribhasa, similarly Panchadasi, Tattvanusandhan, these Advaita Brahma Siddhi, that was also wrote by, in fact, that was written by another Sadhananda, and that is Advaita Brahma Siddhi, and that is also supposed to be the text meant for the beginners. So we were talking about the commentaries on the Brahma Sutra Sankara Bhas. We saw, in fact, how there are mainly two schools. One is the Vivarana school and another is the Bhamti school. One is the Vivarana Prasthana and another is the Bhamti Prasthana. They interpret the teaching of Shankaracharya differently. Again, you will find. What is the actual teaching? Well, you look here again. What is the teaching of Vedas? People do not have agreement regarding that. And we have so many different schools of philosophy regarding that. All these philosophies claim that they are the Vedic philosophy, but they interpret the Vedic philosophy differently. Hence, we have the different schools of Indian philosophy, the Vedanta, the Mimamsa, Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisesika. Then what is the Vedanta philosophy? Again, regarding that, there is no agreement among the scholars. Or one can say people interpret the philosophy of Vedanta differently. And then we have a number of schools. We talked about only the 5 schools that day and 1 school today, that is 6. But this does not mean that Vedanta has only 6 schools, sub-schools. There are more than that. We did not talk about the Ramanandi Vedanta. We did not talk about the Swaminarayan Vedanta. Then, in fact, Sripati also wrote a commentary on Brahmasutra. Srikar also wrote a commentary. Srikant also wrote a commentary on Brahmasutra. Then the author of the great Sankhya, Vigyan Bhikshu, he also wrote commentary on Brahmasutra. Raman, we did not talk about the Ananda Bhasya of Ramanandacharya. So there are other schools as well. And then even within the school of Advaita Vedanta, we find that people are not agreement what is this actually Advaita Vedanta. Padmapadacharya and his followers, Prakash Satman and his followers, would, in fact, they would say that the Advaita Vedanta is in this way, and Vachaspati and his followers would say no. The actual teaching of Advaita is Auchedavad, not Pratibhimbhava. So, as I refer to Vachaspati Mishra wrote commentary on Brahmasutra. You already know that his commentary is famous as Bhamati Tika. Bhamati. And on his name is actually, after his name, this school or this prasthan is called the Bhamati Prasthan. And so, one commentary wrote by Vachaspati Mishra on the commentary of Shankaracharya, that is known as Brahmasutra Sankara Bhasya, Bhamati Tika. And on that Bhamati, there is Kalpataru. Kalpataru of Amalananda. And on Amalananda's Kalpataru, there is another commentary, and that is by Appayadicchit, and that is famous as Parimal. So, in fact, this you may get that edition of this text, which is in fact known as Brahmasutra Sankara Bhasya Bhamati Kalpataru Parimal. There is text Brahmasutra, then commentary of Shankaracharya Brahmasutra Sankara Bhasya, and there you will find also the commentary of Vachaspati, that is known as Bhamati, and there on Amalananda's commentary, that is Kalpataru and Parimal, that has been already published, and not very costly. You may get that book. So that is the called Bhamati Prasthan and the Bimra Prasthan. And then there is a Prasthan of Vartik. That is, you know Sureshwaracharya. Sureshwaracharya, he is again the immediate disciple of Shankaracharya. He wrote commentary on, not commentary, that is called Vartik. And he wrote Vartik on Brihadaranyaka Upanishad Bhasya. Shankar wrote commentary on Brihadaranyaka as well as Chandogya and Taitari, and already we have seen so his other commentaries on other Upanishads. But this Sureshwaracharya, he wrote Vartik on Brihadaranyaka Upanishad Bhasya. Vartik on the commentary of Shankaracharya. And then he also wrote Vartik on Taittiriya Upanishad Bhasya. He is also ascribed to Panchikarana Vartik. So, and his best writing is in fact the Naiskarma Siddhi. And he was immediate disciple of Shankaracharya, and often it is said the Vartikanta Vedānta. In fact, up to this man, Sureshwaracharya, the people were in fact, the writers were Aptapros. So the real Vedanta is Vedanta to Sureshwaracharya. Some people say like that. Vartikanta Vedānta. And this is the Vartik Prastha. Even Sarvagyat Muni Sanchep Saritak, that is also considered to be in accordance with this particular school, that is Vartik sub-school or Vartik Prastha. So in this way we saw the, in fact, the Bhamti Prasthan, Vibran Prasthan, and about Vartik Prasthan. Then after Shankaracharya, in fact, then we come into medieval period, you can say, and there are works like Khandan Khanda Khade by Sri Hars, then Chisukhi, that is Chisukhi, that Chisukhi, which is that text. Chisukhi is actually, can anyone tell me which is that text Chisukhi? Actually, Chisukhi is the text written by Chisukha, that's why it is called Chisukhi, but which is that text? Tattva Pradipika. Tattva Pradipika. Tattva Pradipika is the text. Tattva Pradipika, that is also known as Chisukhi, and that was written by Chisukhacharya. And similarly, Khandan Khanda Khadi was written by Khandan. क्लास है कोई ऐसी बात नहीं है अभी कर लेते हैं. So that text was Tattva Pradipika by Chisukhacharya, and there is a Nayan Prasadini commentary on that. Past Nath Guruji actually worked on that. Nayan Prasadini Tika. So these three people, the Sri Hars, Chisukhacharya, and Madhusudan Saraswati, they actually one can say again, they floated a new school in Advaita Vedanta that is known as Navya Vedanta. So you people may say, no, Navya Vedanta is Vedanta of Vivekananda and Aurobindo, but actually these people are called Navya Vedantins. Navya Vedantins. There were Sri Hars, the Chisukhacharya, and Madhusudan Saraswati. So there are some people who say that in fact modernity is the phenomena which in fact only occurred in India in 19th century. In fact, that is not true. In fact, you know that again and again I am emphasizing that fact that always there has been in scope for interpretation and reinterpretation. And in that way, actually, different schools developed, and in that way, Indian philosophy developed. So, Indian philosophy is actually not a closed system; it is open system. It is a flowing system, and one should not bother that it is just a closed system. It is a dead system. What is Indian philosophy? One may say that Indian philosophy is philosophy of 6 schools, and then 6 orthodox schools and 3 or 6 non-orthodox schools. The Indian philosophy is totality of that. No, this is not the case. Still, people are working in Indian philosophy. In 20th century itself, so many scholars worked on Vedānta itself, and they wrote polemical texts of Advaita. For example, Karpatri ji, Karpatri ji वाली किताब देखे? कौन सी किताब?
वेदांत
हैं?
राम राज्य को वेदांत.
So Karpatri ji wrote number of texts on Advaita Vedānta. Vedānta Parijat, then Marsva, then Ramraj, then in fact Ramarth Paramarth Sar, he wrote a commentary on Paramarth Sar is text related to Kashmir Sufism, but he wrote commentary on that is known as Ramarth Paramarth Sar. He also wrote a text on Bhakti, that is Bhakti Rasamna. There are few Advaitic texts on Bhakti. One is that day we talked about the famous Bhakti text, that is Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Who was author of that Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu? In my previous lecture, I talked about that Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Who was the author of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu? Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu was a beautiful text of Vedanta philosophy, where Bhakti has been actually described as a ras, as an aesthetic sentiment. And that text is very significant even in the field of Indian aesthetics and Jain. So Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and Jiva Goswami commented on that. That text is very significant. That is known as Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by the Rupa Goswami, and then Jiva Goswami commented on that Dursagnamuni Tika, or sometimes it is called Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu. So far as Indian aesthetic is concerned, in fact, this text is also very significant. In fact, that's why J.N. Sinha, he has discussed this text in length in his various books, in his books on Indian psychology and even in history of Indian philosophy. So this Karpatri ji also, he wrote also text on Bhakti, and that is known as Bhakti Rasana. And then Madhusudan Saraswati, he wrote Bhagavad Bhakti Rasayana. And these people were of the view that there is a scope of bhakti within Advaita itself. Often you know that Advaita is famous for its Jnana Marga, and people say that there is no scope of bhakti in Advaita Vedānta. Why? Because in Advaita Vedānta, God is not personal. So if God is not personal, then there will have no scope for anything like devotion or bhakti. Okay. And this is the charge, in fact, leveled by the theistic people. They charge Advaita Vedānta that actually there is no scope of bhakti. So far as religiously is concerned, this school, in fact, cannot contribute anymore. And that's why, those who are students of diploma, those who have been my students in diploma classes, they know why, in fact, the theistic Vedantins are so eager to counter the argument of Shankaracharya. Why they are so? Because, in fact, if you interpret Vedanta in Shankar's way, then there would be no scope for theistic religions. That's why all the theistic schools of Indian philosophy, they in fact refute the doctrine of Shankaracharya. Be it the Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Nimbarkacharya, Vallabhacharya, they have to refute Shankara. Why? Because Shankara is of the view that personal God is not the ultimate one. God is ultimately impersonal. So if God is ultimately impersonal, so there would be no scope for any theistic practices. So, in fact, the whole market of religion, that's why, in fact, they again and again refute the doctrine of Shankaracharya. However, so this Madhusudan Saraswati, he wrote on, in fact, Bhakti Rasa, Bhagavad Bhakti Rasayan, and this Karpatriji, he also wrote a text of Bhakti Rasana. Karpatriji, in principle, there were so many Advaita scholars devoted to Advaita Vedanta. For example, Ananda Krishna Shastri, I referred to that person in my previous lecture. Why? Because Ananda Krishna Shastri refuted the famous text Satadusri. He wrote Satbhusri, and there he not only, in fact, refuted this arguments, in fact, given by Venkatnath Vedānta Desik and others, but also given by Jayatirth, and he refuted both these acharyas. That was in 20th century. तो ये हम लोग जो है बात कर रहे थे, जो वाद जो प्रस्थान है उसकी, जो किस प्रकार से ये श्रीहर्ष, चित्सुखाचार्य, मधुसूदन सरस्वती ये वेदांत को नई दिशा देते हैं, और वो दिशा जो है उसको कहा जाता है नव्य वेदांत। ये नव्य वेदांत हमारा टर्म नहीं कहा हुआ है, ये संस्कृत के पंडित ही कहते हैं। यह जो वेदांत की धारा है वो नव्य वेदांत की धारा है। नव्य वेदांती कौन है? श्रीहर्ष, ये क्या कहते हैं, चित्सुखाचार्य और मधुसूदन सरस्वती। अब ये क्यों नव्य वेदांती कहे जाते हैं, इसके बारे में जो है अलग अलग जो है वो मत है। जो ये क्यों नव्य वेदांती हैं, जो एक तो यही है जो ये नव्य न्याय को जो है जोड़ते हैं, नव्य न्याय की भाषा में वेदांत को प्रस्तुत करते हैं, ये। और दूसरा ये हम वेदांत की एक नई धारा देख रहे हैं जिसमें वेदांत जो है वह अन्य पक्ष का खंडन करता हुआ दिखाई पड़ रहा है। तो ये खंडन परंपरा को, बाध परंपरा को बढ़ाने वाला जो प्रस्थान है, जो बाध प्रस्थान भी कहा जाता है, वाद प्रस्थान भी कहा जाता है, ठीक ना। So I think I should in fact conclude here. That's all today. Okay.